Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and agricultural meteorologist Greg Soulje is back with us today for our end of the year look at the weather
Yes.
here, Greg. I mean, we're wrapping it up quickly and all kinds of things going on across the country. You know, my big question, of course, what's it going to be in Nashville today? Do you have any? There's a big bowl game down there. Did you
Yeah,
know
that's
that?
right. I see part of your Illinois shirt on there.
My
It's like
Illinois shirt. Yeah.
for first time I think they've played maybe in history, Tennessee. Is that do I have that right?
I don't know, but you
I heard
could
it
be
from one of my
right.
radio station colleagues just passing on through. But yeah, I believe that's like a 4:30 kickoff.
Yep.
And they should be looking at temperatures probably close to 40, maybe upper 30s, low 40s at kickoff, and then slide back from there. No rain, no snow, no nothing going on. The breezes will be pretty light and manageable for. So a little cool for Nashville, but, at least you're in a bowl game and you're playing in January or almost January, I should say.
Right, and we just need a win. That's all we need. So
That's right. And then
that'll heat things up.
I think that would give you guys, Illinois, probably the best win-loss record in quite a while as well, in X number of years. So,
Boy, you pay more attention than I do, I think. But I know we're not favored today, but that's all right. I still have hope. So
you want to run with the big dogs, you got to play with the big dogs.
There you go. So go ahead, Greg. I got your slides up there. Give us what's going on in the weather.
Now, right here on this day before New Year's Eve and the start of the new year, and things are quieting down across the Corn Belt. Boy, a barrage of either 50-mile-an-hour winds a few days ago, 60-mile-per-hour winds with some of these thunderstorms that whipped on through. And the National Weather Service out of both Lincoln, Illinois, and Romeoville out of the Chicago office have confirmed that in the parts of Champaign County, as well as Macon County and Edgar counties in Illinois, those were EF1 tornadoes, winds estimated to be between about 90 and 98 miles per hour. So there were pockets of severe weather over the past couple of days, but boy, a shockaroo of the system. Temperatures were down below the 10-degree mark, and they're holding there with a very heavy snowpack on the ground, 10 to 20 inches of snow from the Arrowhead of Minnesota into northern and central Wisconsin from that same storm. And of course, some decent rainfall and snow melt into parts of Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Ohio. There were reports of some 1-inch rainfall totals just west of some of the worst drought areas into central Illinois around McLean County. In any event, still a tough go of it with outdoor work with the cold and blowing and drifting snow into the northernmost reaches of the Corn Belt, and a real sharp cutoff roughly I-80 on northward, where there's some snow cover, and you get up probably Madison, Milwaukee, Rochester, Minnesota northward, and you get all of a sudden a foot and a half of snow on the ground. So that's the story north to south across the Corn Belt locales. Temperatures are recovering, and signs that we're going to move into another milder spell of weather. Of course, lack of snow cover helps, at least from the temperature department and from the comfort standpoint, but not necessarily winter wheat protection across the plains. And most of that crop is exposed, but doing relatively well from an overwintering standpoint. Still some drought issues continue across a wide area of the plains, especially central and southern areas. And again, readings into the 40s, and they could even crowd 50 into parts of eastern Montana for the day tomorrow. And it's really the northern plains to the northern and eastern Corn Belt into the mid-Atlantic region, that northwest to southeast corridor, where temperatures will stay a bit sluggish and cold. Everybody else, again, may see kind of a New Year thaw get going west of the Missouri River. Cold weather this morning is the frost and freeze all the way down into the south end of Cotton Belt country. That would include southern Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida Panhandle, but not into the key ag areas, roughly Orlando, more so. There's a place called Frostproof, Florida on South Road. That's really the key citrus areas. Much back in the late 70s, before the cold wave of that decade came through, frost got and freeze got a good part of that citrus crop north of Orlando. In any event, relatively good shape, but there are some overwintering issues and maybe some burn back because of the frost and freeze in some of the pasture lands, as well as ongoing dryness and drought. Another tough corridor, southern Mississippi, Alabama, southern Georgia, with regard to ongoing dryness and drought there. The Pacific West is shrouded in low clouds and fog. There was a little rain south and west of San Diego, offshore in some of the California current waters, but signs of another swath of significant moisture. And while there's been significant moisture and big rain, of course, some debris flow and flooding because of burn back and burnout from some of the fires last season. Most of that storm is over the Christmas holiday period itself. We're keeping an eye high on snow levels, and they're not very impressive. Even with all that moisture, they were relatively high and confined to the highest peaks and really in the northern and central Sierra. So some of the southern Sierra, mountains of the Southwest, Great Basin, Southern Rockies are still depleted from any significant snowpack. And so there's already some mounting concern about runoff issues come the springtime season. Now we'll kind of reverse course and move southward into Argentina. Some of the headlines down there, most folks have probably heard about some widespread 1/2 to 1.5 inch rainfall across central and northern Argentina. So those emerging summer crops in relatively good shape. Meanwhile, southern crop areas, not even 1/3 of an inch and even under that. So moisture levels are declining, especially around the La Pampa area. And some reports that some of the topsoil moisture levels are down to virtually nothing. So a real dichotomy and range of weather and crop conditions and soil moisture levels across northern and central Argentina versus nothing going on farther south. And of course, the government puts out the ratings, and they still say 81% of the corn and 77% of the beans are generally not only planted, but in relatively good shape. They say, they claim 87% of the wheat crop has been harvested into Argentina. So I got to kind of take some of those crop ratings with a grain of salt. Real-time weather says we've got maybe some issues beginning to build or continuing to build into southern Argentina. A lot to talk about across Brazil. Significant rainfall across many areas, especially centered around the Rio Grande do Sul area. Little, if any, organized moisture off to the east. I'm thinking that will change here in the coming days, the next 5 to 7 days. Daytime temperatures pretty seasonal, low to mid 90s. You watch for some of the hot spots like we do in the Corn Belt with mid and upper 90s. Those have been experiencing some of the drier areas, just like here across the heartland. Eastern areas of Brazil getting a little touchy. We'll keep an eye on some of the crop conditions there. Rio Grande do Sul have had some timely, beneficial, I used to call $1 million rains. So that has helped with soybean growth. Some of the crops that are moving through the vegetative stage right now are generally, according to the government, in relatively good shape. Corn conditions are variable because of moisture deficits, the lack of any organized rainfall as you get around the Rio Grande do Sul area. Now that's coming off, despite the recent rains, we still have some issues there and through eastern areas. And some of those obviously rain-fed crops, summer crops, if you don't get the rain when you need them, later season rains aren't going to really amount to a whole heck of a lot, much like we do on the soybean fields and sometimes when we're past the pollination stage and corn across the Midwest. So again, in better shape through Brazil, but still some hot spots, especially eastern areas because of heat and or the lack of any organized rainfall. Back to the domestic weather scene, you can see some snow and the next weather system into the upper Midwest, western parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota. That's sliding to the east and southeast. The first of probably have 2 or 3 of these little light dusting to short inch or two features that will reinforce the cold from the northern plains into the eastern Corn Belt and heading down towards Dixie. Quiet weather pattern across the plains, the southeastern states, and again, it should be dry weather for the ball game down there at Nashville. I think it's called the Music City Bowl later on this afternoon. There is the snow breaking out, moving southward into Wisconsin and Michigan later on this afternoon. May clip parts of far northern Illinois, northern Indiana, dusting to maybe short inch to about the Kankakee or the I-80 corridor later on tonight and tomorrow morning. So that moves on through. We kind of increased the lake snows that have measured up a foot and a half into parts of western Michigan. More of that to come. And another little band of some light snow by tomorrow morning, breaking out around the Twins, western Wisconsin. Another short dusting to short inch or two on that feature. And that feature will continue its slide to the east and southeast tomorrow afternoon and evening time. Once again, we continue to kind of reestablish the cold air from a few degrees within seasonal norms to a few degrees below. Most of the real Arctic air, the supercharged cold air with clear skies, light wind, heavy snow cover will play out in those same upper Midwestern snow-covered areas. Meanwhile, out on the left coast, you can see the rain expanding by tomorrow afternoon across California. Very, again, high elevation snow above about 7, almost 8,000 feet. You like it and typically see it around 2,500 to maybe 3,500 to let no more than 5,000 feet. And so we've got some initial runoff issues and some flooding potential into California. And again, not much in the way of any significant addition to the snowpack, what little there is across the Great Basin, northern and central parts of the Rockies. Next a couple of days, moisture really focused across the Great Lakes, especially downwind locales into Ohio, Pennsylvania, more big lake snows into western New York State, and the moisture will get cranking away across California. That's the snowpack, by the way, back on the 9th of December, and we headed as far south as I-70. We melted it away, and we had that snow melt, and corresponding and associated with that storm that came through the Midwest a couple of days ago, the severe weather stuff and the big snows through the upper Midwest, Great Lakes areas. There were some pockets in through McLean County, Woodford County, around the Peoria area, Bloomington Normal, that central Illinois, part of that Golden Triangle area of central Illinois, that had some rainfall reports of upwards of an inch. Most everyone else was basically into the quarter-inch category. So assuming those grounds were thawed out before the cold, there may have been some decent percolation, some help to dryness and drought in that particular part of the Corn Belt. There is the snow cover from this morning. It's just a skiff out my window, maybe a half inch up near the Wisconsin line, and you go farther north up towards the Twins, to north of Milwaukee, up towards Lambeau and the upper Michigan, northwoods of Wisconsin. Pretty healthy snowpack there. Same with the northeast of New England, and a very narrow corridor above about 9,000 feet of snow across the northern and central Sierra. Normally, the California Water Resources District, or the equivalent to that agency, will begin at this time of the year to begin to put out numbers, percentages of snowpack. If you take that snowpack and melt it down compared to normal and average. So we'll hopefully have some of those numbers going forward here as we get deeper on into the month of January. Going forward, fairly quiet weather pattern across the country with the aforementioned little clipper systems through the upper Midwest, Great Lakes areas, snow showers and squalls, more favorable downwind of Lake Michigan. A lot of open water still across those Great Lakes waters into parts of northeast Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and New York State. Next major weather system moving ashore through California, 2 to 6 inches of rainfall and maybe a foot and a half to 2 in some of the better peaks, higher peaks of the Sierra. So, and hopefully central and southern Sierra, where there's been really a lack of any significant moisture out there. And some rain will be breaking out as the week wears on over the southeastern states and some of those key drought-ridden areas of the Cotton Belt where we need some rainfall. And typically a La Nina setup is not real conducive to getting organized rains on a recurring basis over the winter season over the southeastern states. So maybe an early access to field work down there come late February, March, but soil moisture issues may continue on. There's a real range of temperatures across the country. Daytime readings for the day-to-day into the 20s and at least recovering into the 30s towards the Mississippi, 40s, 50s, a few low 60s back west of the Missouri. There's the next little punch of cold air into the upper Midwest with daytime readings come Friday into the teens and lower 20s and 30s over the rest of the northern and eastern Corn Belt. Some 40s as you get into the western complex and south towards the Ozarks, and another recovery by Monday next week with daytime readings at least moving into thaw-free cycles over the eastern Corn Belt, and another nice thaw if you want to enjoy that, exposing winter wheat and all that. But 40s and 50s, pretty comfortable with the outdoor work and livestock operations into play west of the Missouri and across the Great Plains. Overnight readings, no really bitter cold air. There'll be another round of some frost and a brief light freeze, probably as far south as Orlando tomorrow morning. Cold air holds through the Great Lakes region, the northeast of New England. Some areas west of the Missouri, back into the plains and east of the Divide may not even get down below freezing at night. And there's a pretty comfortable weather pattern going into the early days of January with regard to overnight lows, 20s and 30s, 40s expected into the Plain States areas, and a cold air would linger across the northeast of New England. Next 5 days from an up air perspective, you get a couple of troughs, a couple of wiggles to move on through, but you don't see a big drop northwest to southeast. It's kind of what we call a zonal flow west to east across the country. So weather systems are weak. They don't have a lot of opportunity to tap into cold air nor moisture. And so you get these little ranges of temperatures daytime to nighttime, pretty manageable from an outdoor work livestock standpoint. Footing issues a little touchy where there's maybe some degree of thaw-free cycles going on. We may begin to see that where there was significant moisture from the storm system a couple of days ago into parts of the far southern and southwestern Corn Belt. And again, a couple of disturbances on the move, probably one of significance, that system out of the southern plains to the southeastern states, one piece moving through Friday and Saturday, another one early next week. So some opportunities for additional rain in the deep south and southeastern parts of the country. Little systems moving through the Great Lakes to the northeast of New England, and things will begin to quiet down across the western states once we get one more weather system to move through over the course of the weekend. May turn those winds actually offshore, a little Santa Ana getting into Southern California. The only real weather issues with regard to cold will be in the southeast tonight and tomorrow morning. Lake snows probably heaviest around Buffalo and northward from there and around the Lake Ontario area, and significant moisture into the Sierra Ranges and coastal sections of California. There it is the next 7 days as we you mentioned, 2 to 6+ inches out there. Melt the snow, probably 1/10 to ½ inch in and around the Great Lakes areas, most of that through Michigan, parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania. Drought monitor from just before Christmas time. You could see some of the worst of it. Still parts of the lower Rio Grande, the southeastern states, still holding on across sections of the Corn Belt, little worsening in through Oklahoma. There's a snapshot. There should be some improvement noted on this week's drought monitor coming out of central Illinois from that rainfall, close to an inch into Woodford and Peoria and vicinity, the Clay counties from just a few days ago. Next 6 to 10 days, we're having some issues with what we're seeing from at least the government standpoint. The feds, there's the upper weather pattern. It's not real conducive to any super cold air. Some moderation back west of the Missouri. No endorsement, but the 6 to 10 days been peddling this. We think it's a little overdone for the northern and eastern Corn Belt, a little overdone on temperatures west of the Missouri, but still locked into this weather pattern where readings continue to be above average in the plains and far western Corn Belt. We think closer to average, teeter-tottering back and forth, but at least no super cold air surges expected across any of the Corn Belt, any reaches of the country. The pattern stays active across the west into California and begins to work its way east of the Mississippi as we approach the 10th or so of the month of January. We'll have the updated winter outlook around here. Some discussion on the strength of La Nina. Are we already fading out of that? We've kind of begin to open up the books here on the longer range stuff for the new year. So we'll see what transpires on that. We'll have the TV show and, of course, on the 14th on our live stream here. Forgot to change that to did something wrong. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. But again, Happy New Year from one and all in the weather office and This Week in Agribusiness.
Very good. Yeah, looks like some mild temperatures, just nothing too significant, which is nice as we go into the new year here. But yeah, happy New Year to all of you, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for joining us.
Take care.